Known for its tropical weather, carnival celebrations, and tourist-attracted beaches, the southernmost Caribbean island of Trinidad also holds a dark secret embedded in the rich folklore of the island's history. An entity so terrifying that tales of its existence has been passed down from generation to generation that still haunt the dark corners and minds of those who know its name. The Soucouyant. Derived from the French Creole word, the Soucouyant is a shape-shifting vampiric entity. Appearing as a human during the day, mostly as an old unsuspecting woman, the creature sheds the skin of its humanly facade once the sun goes down, before taking the form of a ball of fire and flying into the night, seeking victims for blood. Soucouyants are not mere spirits, but they were once mortal beings who practiced the art of witchcraft, or as the local islanders call it, obia, who made a pact with the devil to become the powerful vampires that they are. To further understand the origin of this evil, it is closely tied to the early history of Trinidad and its settlers. The first and indigenous people of the island were the Amerindians, and their two distinct tribal factions called the Tainos and Kalinagos, also known locally as the Carib and Arawaks. However, Trinidad would receive its name from Christopher Columbus himself, as he referred to the island as the Holy Trinity upon his landing in 1498. The Spaniards were the first Europeans to settle on the island, followed swiftly behind by the Portuguese, French, and British. Like most of the New World, Trinidad was also part of the North Atlantic slave trade, where hundreds upon thousands of West African slaves were brought to the island to harvest its resources, mainly cocoa and sugarcane. But with new people came new cultures. The vampire myth was said to have been brought to the island by the French settlers, of whom intermingled with African slaves and their own practices of West African witchcraft, also known as bayi or juju. From this union of cultures spawned the Soucouyant. Unlike the traditional long canine, pale skin, and dark cloak vampires of France and Romania, who pierced the neck of their victims to draw blood, the Soucouyant uses a darker, more disturbing method. Being a witch, the Soucouyant can change its form of fire to any size and creep into the smallest crevice of its victim's home. It casts a spell to make sure the person is in a numb state of sleep before it sucks the blood through the pores from any limb of its victim, leaving a nasty black and blue circular mark once it feeds. Contrary to the mainstream depiction of vampires, whom acquire blood to survive, the Soucouyant, being a practitioner of black magic, uses human blood not for consumption, but for an even more sinister purpose. Trees are some of the oldest living things on the planet, and vital for our survival, given the fruits and oxygen they produce. However, trees are highly regarded in many cultures around the world, not only for their resources. In ancient West Africa, and by extension, its roots now in Caribbean folklore, the silk cotton tree in particular is believed to be a gateway to the spirit world, a dwelling place for souls stuck in purgatory, the damned, and demonic entities, the latter of which Soucouyants trade the blood of their victims for more dark power. If one were to ask how to ward off such a creature, it is believed that traditional Christian methods, which involve the cross, holy water, and holy ground, keeps the Soucouyant at bay along with other evil entities. The creature can only transform during hours of darkness, as sunlight is also fatal to it. So when it comes to the manner in which one can kill it, the most consistent and effective method according to folklore, is by placing salt in the mortar which contains the stripped-off skin of the Soucouyant, causing it to never again to be able to hide in its human skin and ultimately perish. This blood-sucking creature, unfortunately, isn't just relegated to the island of Trinidad, but also appears in the folklore of other Caribbean islands, as well as some regions in North, Central, and South America. In places such as St. Lucia, Martinique, and Louisiana, it is known as the Soucouyant, while in Guyana, Belize, and Jamaica, they simply refer to it as the Old Hag. Despite the Soucouyant being so deep-rooted in the rich folklore of the island's history, tales of said creature have long since faded from the ears and minds of its people in modern times. Only older generations appear to still hold the belief of the existence of such entities, but in the 21st century, mention of these scary beings are more or less only told in spooky tales around the campfire, or scary bedtime stories as a caution for misbehaving children. So whether or not you believe that monsters exist, it's still worth checking under the bed, inside the closet, locking all the doors and windows, and perhaps leaving a light on, just in case, after the sun goes down.